So, welcome to another episode of the Podcast Profits Unleashed podcast, the show where we empower coaches and experts to use podcasting as a powerful tool, to drive sales and grow your business. Now, I'm your host, Karen Roberts. Now, after the break, I will be sharing with you my top tips on how to turn your podcast guests into high ticket clients. But before that, I'm joined by my guest today, who is Joey Drolshagen. Now, he is, what can we say about Joey? He's been featured on Fox, NBC, CBS, and he's been named one of America's top business coaches for 4 consecutive years by the New York City Journal. And he is really a bit of a disruptor, because he was named that for the Disruptors magazine too. Now, he has over 28 years, more than 28 years in corporate America. Joey, he's helping business owners, entrepreneurs ditch their self-sabotaging habits so they can build successful routines, if you like, that lead to faster growth. He's all about scaling quickly so that you can get bigger results. So, Joey, welcome to the show.
Oh, it's great to be here with you, Karen. I love your personality. It's awesome.
Thank you. Now, everyone will, at the beginning of this, you've got to share your story, right? So what inspired you initially to really focus on helping business owners grow quickly?
Yeah. And Karen, it really all started for me. Growing up, I grew up in Detroit, Michigan, in a very struggling blue-collar family. Man, my parents were my heroes, and I watched them beat themselves up to raise us 5 kids, keep a roof over our head, food in our mouth, and things like that. And as I was growing up, when I got to be about double digits, right around 10 or 11, I thought, man, something's not right here. I'm not going to live like you people are living. And then I found myself in my later teens, early 20s, getting out of school, going into the workforce. And I realized something at 22 years old. If something had showed up for me and it came about really easy, I would reject it because I didn't earn it because I didn't work hard enough for it.
Ooh.
And so I got into the ground floor of sales by hap chance. And man, I struggled just to keep anything moving as far as revenue growth, things like that and stuff. I worried all the time about being let go. I had a young family and it was just, everything was a struggle like that. Everything was really hard and I couldn't figure out why. And I started stepping into different programs and doing this and doing all these different things. And I'd pay all the money for the investment, the time, the effort, everything else. And I'd walk away going, I learned a lot, but it didn't change anything within me. And I couldn't figure out why. And I'd walk away from those thinking there must be something the matter with me. And then it would continue to happen over and over. And it wasn't until I came about the total mindset that we hear a lot about, the total mindset, but more specifically, that subconscious part of it, that there's like what I call now a motherboard of programming of our past experiences, the way we were raised, the things we were told, things like that. And all of that is in that programming. And that's what triggers the brain waves to the actions we take or don't take. So it would make sense if something showed up easy for me and I had experienced struggle all the time, I would reject that because it didn't fit into that programming. And so as I started learning that, as I started leaning into it, which has been like over 3 decades now, I did all of this to fix my own life. And as I did, and my life got better, and I went from traveling 3,000 to 5,000 miles almost every single week trying to build territories in sales and not getting any ground in it. Wow. To a top producer and landing contracts of $18 million year over year, $22 million. My highest one was $25 million year over year contract, which took a $50 million organization overnight to a $75 million organization. And so as I started learning these things and I applied them to business, but they also impacted my personal life and how far I've gone. And I've always wanted to soar with the Eagles. So at some point I went out and got my pilot's license and that didn't do it. So today I hang glide. And I run off of mountaintops with a hang glider and I get that soaring feeling, but I get it in every day with what I do. So as I started understanding this stuff and it started changing my life, then people started asking me about my life and why it's so different. And that really has been a process that I didn't choose to go down, but I've been taken down into developing the SMT method, which is subconscious mindset training.
Love that. Love that. We've been conditioned though, haven't we? It's interesting what you just said there about your backstory, because it is. I think everybody in the West, whether they're over there, whether they're here in the UK, nothing's different. We've been conditioned to believe that you have to work hard for money. You have to work hard for money. And so that is fascinating that then your subconscious mind is rejecting anything coming in because it doesn't fit in with that. And it's so true. It makes so much sense that there are so many business owners out there that are struggling because they're busy being busy. They feel like they're working really hard for this thing, but they're not getting the results that they're looking for. And it makes so much sense that it's down to this subconscious or unconscious, whatever you want to call it, programming. So you must have a process of how do you change that then? How do you help these business owners get these rapid results?
Great question. And the entire SMT method, which stands for subconscious mindset training, it's all geared so we start bumping up against those patterns, those paradigms, those habits, really, of belief systems, of things like that. So when we bump into them, instead of just unconsciously following those, which is what we do for a lot of our programming, is we start bumping up against them and we start realizing how they're holding us up. Once we identify what it is, then there's a tool set within the SMT method that we can quickly shift that, which then opens up the door for greater opportunity for us to start experiencing. So every client I work with, I start out with what the SMT method calls developing a dynamic vision. It's not what do I want, but it's specific and it's very focused into what that is we want to achieve. A business owner, a lot of business owners, the people I talk to will say, I want to get my business to $5 million. But it's the why of that. But not just the why, it's everything. It's how does that $5 million impact your business? How does that $5 million impact your customers? How does that $5 million impact your life and your family and your neighborhood and your community? It's all, sorry, I get excited, but it's all built into that vision. And then once we have that vision, we have something new to start looking at. So instead of living by the situations and circumstances that pop up in our life that can really throw us in the gutters, really pull us away and create a lot of additional effort required, we can start living by that vision, and they become almost like little speed bumps that come up. They don't require as much attention. They don't require as much drama in the efforts of focusing on getting rid of it and things like that. So we can focus on that. And then once we have that vision, we really start bridging that gap from where I am to the person is to where they want to be. And in that, you mentioned this as a different wording, but the SMT method refers to it as developing systems of accelerating habits. So if you look at our programming, it's unique. We can have commonalities with fears, commonalities with money, but it's really unique to each individual. So what I realized in the programs I had taken in the past is they were all built on a one-size-fit-all cookie cutter, I think you called it earlier, and that type of thing, but they never worked for it like that. The person who developed it, they achieved this mighty success with it. But less than 1% of people following those programs ever achieve anywhere near what the person who developed it does. And the reason being is the person that developed it, they developed it through their uniqueness. And then we try and package it as cookie cutter to work for everyone, but we're not everyone. I'm not everyone. What works for me isn't going to work for you, and vice versa. So we start developing systems of accelerating habits that are unique to that individual. So they're doing the things that light them up. So they're getting more of a charge, like you and your personality I keep mentioning and stuff like that. You love what you do. Now think about somebody who's trying to do podcasting who doesn't feel that comfort level of doing it, how hard that would be for them. But yet we try to force ourselves to do things like that when really there's not one way to success. So when we develop systems of accelerating habits that are unique to the individual, they work for that person. They won't work for me, they won't work for you, but they'll work for that person when we get done developing them that we set it for.
I love that. And I think that's so important because I really feel that because of social media, people are looking to what they consider to be gurus almost. And they think, I've got to do what they're doing. And you think, yeah, but they're not you. Number one, they've probably got a marketing budget like 50 times what yours is. And they might be comfortable in front of a camera and they might have this full production and maybe that's not right for you. And then there's people who are more introverted. And it's like, man, you can still have a podcast. You don't have to be on camera. You can do it audio if that makes you feel more comfortable. And
Absolutely.
somebody else might be doing something different. And and I think this is what it is. People need to come away and work out what is in alignment with them, what they love to do. And like you said, there's what they say, all roads lead to Rome. You've got to choose your path. And just because that worked for that person doesn't mean it's going to work for you.
Absolutely.
Fine. I love it. I love it.
Yeah, and we put so much time into who we have to be in order to be successful in our business that we keep going outside of who we are. We ignore that completely and we try to become somebody else. I did that for a lot of years. It never got me any headway into what I was doing. Today, I get to be who I am, and I get to be passionate and excited to help other people break through those limitations, identify and break through those limitations. And in doing so, when we realize it's never been about the conditioning will tell us. We go to school and we do math, right? And we have math problems and we get the same problem. And I go through and I show it long form exactly like I'm supposed to, like they taught us and everything else, and I get the right answer. I get full credit. Now you come along, Karen, and you're going through it, but you find a shortcut and you can drop half of the workout and you get to the right answer. You get marked down. Instead of celebrating that creativity within you, you get marked down. So it really is our programming all the way back to childhood and continues to go forward. And if I could just leave people with one message today, it would be like, you will never get to where you want by trying to be somebody else. So your best bet is to find out who you are. Find out what lights you up. Do more of those things, and you're going to be successful beyond what you can believe.
This word, being authentic or being your authentic self, is just thrown around out there, and I don't think people totally understand the true meaning of it. The way I see it, and this is why I suppose I love doing podcasts, because I couldn't agree with you more. The power of this is I can show up as me. And like you, I can get a little bit excited about stuff. That is my personality. I am passionate about what I do, and I'm allowed to. And I don't have to face, in my head, I don't have to face any negativity, because the people who don't resonate with me, guess what? They're not listening. So I get to show up and serve those who are. And it's individual, isn't it?
Very much so. Very much so. Yes. Like I have been, and I didn't plan to do this or anything. I just wanted to fix my life, but I am the epitome of going against conditioning. When I grew up, it was people are meant to work with their hands and certain people are meant to work with their head. And I'm supposed to work with my hands. And I bought into that through school and everything else. So I never applied myself. And that's one scenario, but I'm the first child in my family to get a college degree. I'm the first child in my family to break through blue collar and get into white collar. I'm the only child in my family to make it to executive VP of sales level and to have the achievements I have. I'm the first person to walk away from that because we're conditioned that a man gets a job, supports a family, and hopefully lives long enough to enjoy some retirement. And I followed that pathway for a long time. And I finally, when I broke away and I do what I do today, I resigned as a vice president of sales after I helped an organization in bankruptcy get back to profitability. And I moved down to the mountains of South Carolina, and I've just been going my own route and following my pathway and enjoying the heck out of it.
Enjoy the journey. And I suppose there is a little bit, what do you think stops people from doing this? What do you think makes people feel like they do have to show up as this other personality because that's what they've been conditioned to do? Why is it? I know it's part of it's going to be fear. They don't think they can make it as their authentic self, but what do you think's going on?
Yeah, and fear is always going to be a part of anything new that we try because we haven't tried it before. My first launch off of that 2,000-foot mountaintop with the hang glider, I was really scared. until the moment my feet left the ground, and then
Ah,
ecstasy. It was like amazing. And that's what happens just the other side of that fear is our launch point where we take off. And what happens, the mechanics of it are this: we're told certain things when we're growing up. We're seeing certain things happen certain ways when we're growing up. We see if our family's been in business and stuff like that in corporate America or things like that. So we've seen the life they've led through it, so it feels like the right life. So everything inside of us, when we're living unconsciously, when we're just going by our programming and going forward and trying to get what we want and things like that, it's that programming. It's scary to step outside of that because that programming is in essence what we call the comfort zone. We might not
mm,
like it there, Karen, but we're comfortable in that comfort zone. So when we get a thought outside of that comfort zone, one of the things I see with a lot of my clients is when we start talking about growth. I had a client that went from $7.5 million to over $22 million in 12 months. When we started talking about growth, they were stuck at 10.5 million from 7.5. I helped them stretch that to $12.5 million. But even then, they said, I don't think it's possible. I know you do, but I don't think it's possible. So I'm going to lean on your belief into it. And so as we start doing that, and then all of a sudden, as it starts happening, and as we start seeing that growing beyond the 12.5 very rapidly throughout the year, then all of a sudden it's, oh my God, we're going to hit so high. And then they've maintained that for the last 7 or 8 years that they've been at that level. So but it's that breaking through point. It's that here's one of the key essence to it is that programming, that subconscious programming. Most of us are not even aware that's playing. When I
mm,
was 22 and an easy opportunity showed up for me, and I found like looking back on not while it was happening, but while it was happening, I was like, this can't be right. This can't be right. And I found every reason in the world to not be right and then let it pass. And then as I'm looking back, I'm going, man, that would have been so easy. And that started that trigger thought for me.
mm,
Why is something easy hard for me to allow?
yeah,
And that's what happens with our programming.
yes. We've got this glass ceiling, and I do think it's funny because a lot of my guests are in the US. I seem to be more popular in the US than I am in the UK. And I've always said that I don't know this. Your glass ceiling in the States, it isn't there. And I don't know whether there's almost what's the word I'm looking for? There is, you've always been the trailblazers. And I think in England, especially, people have this fixed mindset of how much they can earn. And if maybe they could get to that level in their job, then they can make that amount. And the entrepreneurship, I don't know, mindset has been a little bit slower coming. Whereas you
Mhm.
guys over there, you think bigger and something about your belief system. I don't know where there's almost an ancestral thing going on there because here I think it's definitely stronger that there is this glass ceiling and it doesn't exist. Doesn't matter
Well,
whether you're in the
it does,
US.
but a glass ceilings do exist. I have broken through so many glass ceilings. When I was a kid, growing up where I grew up, you never got opportunities to grow and have a decent salary, and you struggled, and you were one of the people that got in the trenches and every day and dug and did what you had to do to get by and everything else. There was a ceiling there. But what I've realized over my time in life and changing around, and everybody's really, in the US is a great example. They talked about the glass ceiling like that when I was a kid. Then later on, they talked about the glass ceiling for women and things like that and stuff. But
Mm,
some people don't see that glass ceiling. The people
mm,
that see that glass ceiling have a true glass ceiling they cannot get above. But the people that
right.
don't see a glass ceiling, there's no limit. There's no limit
Yes.
to it. And so as we start doing that, and you're starting to see, it's so awesome over here, seeing more and more women businesses that are or in corporate, and now there's the coaching and things like that in the NFL and stuff. The first woman coach, and you're starting to see those things. They're the only glass ceilings are the ones that we buy into. Now we can have
Yeah.
people above us that believe there should be a glass ceiling for us, and
Yeah.
that can start to limit us, but only as much as we allow it.
Yeah.
When we start
Well,
buying into there being glass ceilings, we're limited.
totally, which is going back to what we said. I don't think we said it on this show, but last week when I had you on for the live stream, you talked about it's us. We've got to get out of our own way. It's always us when we get rid of this imaginary things. But what else do you think? What other things do you think is stopping people from stepping out and going for that rapid growth? Because again, I think sometimes they think they've got to do it slowly. What else do you think is?
Because it's a cultural thing, really, and that's part of the programming, right? You and I are receiving programming right now in this conversation. Mm-hmm. And there's constant programming coming in based on what we buy on and stuff like that. And I'll give you a great example. I had a client that was in Virginia. They're a realtor. They were moving to Chattanooga area. And so as they were setting up to move and things like that, we talked about, we built a vision, we got everything going where things are just going to flow and people are going to come and the whole thing. And we built it. It was beautiful. And so then the move happened and the person went there. And all of a sudden they'd go to the grocery store and get gas and they would meet somebody and the person's going, oh, you're in real estate and you're new to the area, this and that stuff. And they'd want to talk to them about listing a house or they're looking for a house or whatever it is. And they got busy within the first few weeks of being there. They started getting busy with leads. The 5th week they were there, they went to 2 conferences within a week that were specific to realtors. And the person went there and they heard about the shortage of inventory shortage. They heard about all the competition. They heard about this. They heard all the stuff they heard twice in a week. And the next week when I talked to them, they were disgruntled. They were upset. They had lost the majority of the leads that had come to them and things like that. And we broke it down to the only difference being is they set their vision down and they started listening to what other people were saying about the area. And that became their truth. And that's one of the major differentials in how far we can go in life is how much we buy into those. And when I talked about that earlier about the vision, what the SMT calls a dynamic vision,
so you got
no limits.
Have a bigger vision and stop listening to the naysayers. That's what I'm hearing from you.
Here's what I tell people when they'll say that, and they'll go, I can't grow the business because of the economy, state of the economy, or because the election comes up. And I'll ask them, hey, have you ever heard of a business that just booms during a down economy? When stocks are down, everything else. You ever hear? And mostly they'll go, yeah, I know of a guy who did that. It's amazing. Wish I was him, blah, blah, blah. And I go, okay. You ever hear of you ever know people, more than one person, who struggles in their business during a boom economy? And they'll go, oh, yeah, a lot. So what that tells us is the economy doesn't matter into how far our business can grow or whether it's going to grow or shrink or anything else. It's how we think about what we hear about the economy that's going to make the difference, because that's what goes into that programming. And that's when we get a spark of an idea that says, okay, we're going to do this and that and stuff, that goes, maybe we should wait. Maybe we should hold on to finances. Maybe we should this and that, pull us away from it. Another really big way to notice that is procrastination. We know what we want. We'll get an action that we know will move us along that line, but we just can't seem to take that action. That's the programming causing a halt within us that we use as procrastination.
You just got to keep the faith, trust yourself, and stop listening to the outsiders. So, look, I'm sure every business owner out there wants to scale their business quickly, wants to go to that next level. So, what should the listeners do next then?
So, like I said, the vision, things like that, and then start, it's such a huge thing. And people go, it's, you got to work harder than that. But it's such a huge thing to just be aware of our thoughts. Just be aware of when something happens or an action comes up or something like that. Be aware of the thoughts, because they will point out where the limitation of the programming is coming into play. And so as we start noticing those, then we at least have that initial understanding of, wait, this isn't me, this is limitation happening. And then that will give us some more motivation to go that other way with it. And when we go that other way, we're shifting that limited perception and we start opening up to greater potential in our life. Notice what we're noticing. Notice how we're feeling about the things that are coming up and such. It's such a huge indicator of it. With the SMT method, I developed it so that it would help people bump up against it quicker because it's all about rapid growth, rapid change. So as we start bumping up against it, but you do the same thing in your own life as you're talking to people. Somebody says something to you, the way you not just what we heard, but how did we hear it? Because if somebody says to me right now, I can't grow my business because of the economy, I just say BS. And here's the other thing that really limits us, Karen, is we're taught to live within the confines of that programming of our conditioning and all of that stuff. It's hard initially. It's uncomfortable to step outside of that and to take a different action because we're so enthralled in it. We're so embedded into it. It's been given us for many years. When I resigned from corporate America, I lost at least a handful of friends because they thought I was ridiculous. I was a VP of sales. I was making the money. I had all the bonuses, pluses, and everything else that go with it and stuff. But I was miserable. And now I step outside and I do this, and it goes beyond what I ever did in corporate America. Because it's my vision. And in my vision, that excites me. Nobody else has to be excited about it. And then all of a sudden I started noticing over time, I started interacting with different people. The people that I was with in corporate and had a good time with in golf, I didn't spend as much time with them. And I spent more time with business owners and people that were where I want to be. But I did not do so to do what they did. I did so to put me about that commonality of those people who were where I wanted to be. Big differentiator there.
Yes, I can see that. And somehow we've got to find a way of being comfortable, feeling uncomfortable, because that's the only way you're going to grow. If people are thinking, I want to know more about this method,
yeah.
Where do they find it? How do they reach out to you, Joey?
Well, the easiest way, really, Karen, is anybody can go to SMT Method and schedule a time for us to get on a Zoom call and talk to each other and see if I can help you at all, if I can help open up things, if I can help you even just understand something better and give you some tools to shift that. It'll at least start moving you in that direction. And I've not met one person in the last 12 years that I've been doing this that hasn't had that initial shift and it just changed their willingness to step outside of their comfort zone and try new things.
Brilliant. Okay. And guys, if you're listening, Joey's links will be in the show notes. So please resort back to those. So Joey, look, thank you so much for your time today. It's been an absolute pleasure.